Mabuhay, Kamusika, welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. The title for the video tonight is called Criticism and Blame Will Damage Your Relationship with the Filipina. No one likes criticism, especially the Filipina that you want to marry or that you did marry. Subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea if you want a channel that focuses on helping foreign men do well with a Filipina. Share these videos to help other men find love beyond the sea. How to communicate with your Filipina wife is a live stream that I will link for you, and this is kind of the opposite of that. This is a viewer request on ways to not communicate with your Filipina. At the conclusion of this video, I will share some ways you can give criticism honestly without sounding like a jerk, and the link that it is from. So dishonoring and criticizing a Filipina is definitely the wrong way to communicate, and these would be words that are put downs intended to knock the other person down a peg or two, to make them feel smaller, less important. Criticism is something no one wants to hear. I think of it as pointing out something to the wife that she probably already realizes wasn't the way she wanted it to be, and driving home your point. It's important to remind ourselves that marriage is a team sport, so we need to work together. I think one needs to be cautious with even constructive criticism, because it takes some finesse to not have that come out the wrong way. Saying your cooking isn't very good again, or the house is a mess, or you're late again, is being critical. It may even be true, but if a solution isn't offered, then it sounds like complaining to me. Dishonoring words would be minimizing the impact of her role in your marriage, and that would also be bad, or minimizing her attempt to be a good wife. So dishonoring words are out too. Obviously, no one is likely just to come out and say, "You are a terrible wife," but there are backhanded ways to do that, such as, "So-and-so's wife doesn't do that," or "So-and-so's wife is like this." In fact, since communication goes beyond the spoken word, a man's actions can be dishonoring simply by not recognizing his wife's worth to him and telling her about it. Not being thankful is dishonoring. Not telling her that you love her is dishonoring. Not offering to make her load easier is being dishonoring. Actions speak louder than words. You don't have to say you don't love someone or you don't appreciate them. Your actions make that clear. It isn't enough to say, "But you know I appreciate you." She needs to hear it, and I bet you do too. I know I do. Blaming. Blaming is another bad way to communicate. There will be times where we feel like our spouse deserves to be blamed for something, and we're human after all. The key is to be cognizant of a way to express ourselves without putting us at odds with our wife. For example, I could tell my wife, "Why do you keep buying me this food when I keep telling you I hate it?" Or I could phrase it something like, "Honey, maybe I haven't done a good job of letting you know why I don't really want to eat this particular food," or, "Why did you forget to do this again?" Instead, I could say, "Sweetie, did you realize this happened again? Maybe I wasn't clear before, but let me say it again. Can you see why this is important to me?" Blaming is a poor way to communicate and will increase the chance that she's going to retaliate and start pointing out your flaws when she might not otherwise. So, as I mentioned, how do you give criticism honestly without sounding like a jerk? And I will put the link in the description box. 1, be straightforward. According to this link, you aren't doing anybody any favors by skirting around the subject. Trying to hide your criticism with a subtle hint or worse in the form of a passive-aggressive comment will only serve to confuse or insult the subject of your criticism. Instead, don't be afraid to come out with what you really mean. For example, they say if a coworker is underdressed for a networking event and you're both attending, don't try to be clever and indirect with something like, "Most people like to look professional when they come to these." Just come out and say, "I think you're underdressed for this event." Though you'll probably want to frame it with a few of these other tips so that they go on to add. Now, I agree, being straightforward doesn't mean blasting your Filipina for something you don't like, even if it's something that you should be upset about, that's the easy, low-level effort way to deal with it. For example, a Filipina enjoys cooking your favorite Filipino foods. Personally, I have always been happy with just the same small amount of foods I've pretty much always eaten. I don't need a wide variety of foods to be happy, so trying new foods is not really important to me. But I should try what my wife cooks. If it doesn't appeal to me right away, I can say something like, "Sweetie, I might like this more as I get used to it. You know how finicky I am with new foods. I will eat it with you when you make it, though." Number 2, be specific when trying to give honest, so-called constructive criticism. Be specific. General criticism almost sounds like a put-down. Something like, "You aren't doing that right," is non-specific and therefore could be applied to every aspect of the task. For example, if a person is working on a complex spreadsheet, they say, and you say something like, "You've done it all wrong," the person will feel terrible about it. Not only have you completely destroyed the person's work, you haven't given any indication of something specific that's the root cause of the problem. Instead, try to be as specific as possible, drill down to the specific elements that are causing the problem. And they say, for example, when teaching, well, I'll say, when teaching my wife how to drive, instead of yelling, "If you're not careful, you're going to get us killed," instead I could say, "Honey, these cars are coming at us downhill and are moving faster than it seems. So it's a good idea to not go into the intersection until you don't see any cars at the top of the hill." Number 3, focus on the work, not the person. This should be an obvious strategy, but you'd be surprised by how many people neglect it. Criticizing a person directly will always make him or her feel bad and will do nothing to incite or inspire a positive change. For example, they say, let's say your account manager is struggling with maintaining client relationships because he doesn't come off as friendly in conversation. Telling him he's not a very friendly person, even if you do so politely, serves as an insult and doesn't give the situation a chance for improvement. Telling him his word choices and body language make him seem unfriendly diverts the criticism to his actions rather than himself and makes the situation more positive and actionable. Now, me again, if my wife doesn't seem to be giving me her attention, there's a better way than telling her that, she is selfish or self-absorbed. I can tell her that when she doesn't look at me when I have something important to say that I want to talk to her about, that just makes me feel like what I have to say isn't important, and I know that it is. Number 4, don't tell someone they're wrong. There are some cases where that's the right way, but for the most part, that's not exactly true. For example, even if one of your workers approaches a problem in a way that violates company policies and procedures, there might be some value in doing it that way. Even if a person is in the rare position of being completely wrong, telling them they're wrong escalates the criticism to confrontation and makes your criticism wholly debatable. Instead of declaring a person's actions wrong, instead suggests that they could be made better in some way. Now, what I'll say is, let's say that someone has misunderstood something my wife said or did. Rather than saying, "Of course they took it that way. What did you expect them to do?" I could say, "Hun, sad to say they misunderstood you, my love, but now you know what they were thinking. The next time it will be easier because of this experience." Number 6, how to criticize honestly without sounding like a jerk is to find something to compliment. Find something to compliment. Occasionally you'll hear advice to serve criticism in a quote compliment sandwich by saying something nice, giving the criticism, and then closing with something else that is nice. They say this isn't necessary, but including compliments can help soften the blow of criticism and make it obvious that you are there to help. Now, personally, I always recommend plenty of compliments, even for things that you've already consistently complimented your Filipina for. Number 6, according to this article, make suggestions, not orders. If you're in a position of authority, it can be tempting to phrase your criticism as an order, like, You need to start doing this another way. Doing so demonstrates your authority and practically forces the person to change. In extreme situations, this is a good thing, but if your relationship is on relatively good terms, it's better to start with a softer approach. They say make a suggestion rather than giving a command with something like, you could be more productive if you did this another way, or I think you'll find another way is better. And then number 7, have a conversation. Finally, don't make your criticism a one-sided blow. Make it an invitation to a conversation. Listen to what your subject has to say on the matter, and if there's a specific reason why he or she isn't meeting expectations. So, those are the reasons or the ways of how to offer criticism honestly without sounding like a jerk. Personally, I really need to slow down and learn to talk to my wife when I feel like being critical, because a lot of the time I'm wrong because I end up jumping to conclusions. So I think it's good advice to ask her questions when I'm upset, because often things aren't the way that I saw them. When I need to disagree with my wife, I try to avoid making it personal with my love beyond the sea.